While my son David was standing in the empty shell of what had once been our family's $3.2 million waterfront estate, watching moving trucks carry away the last of the antique furniture as the new owners took possession of the property he'd assumed would be his inheritance, I was sitting in my new penthouse overlooking Seattle's Elliott Bay, finally understanding that sometimes the family members who suggest a 70-year-old woman should make herself useful by moving to the basement are about to discover they just insulted someone who built a real estate empire worth $47 million and had the power to sell their future out from under them with a single phone call. Tell me in the comments, have you ever been so spectacularly underestimated by your own family that you decided to teach them a lesson they'd never forget? Share your story below, because today, you're going to learn that sometimes the people who treat you like a burden are about to witness the most expensive wake-up call of their entire lives. This story is about the April morning when I realized that my own son, the child I'd raised alone after his father's death, put through business school with money I'd earned building one of the Pacific Northwest's most successful luxury property development companies, supported through his early career struggles, and trusted with what I thought was unconditional love and respect, had been systematically treating me like an aging inconvenience whose only remaining value was providing free household services, while staying out of sight in the basement of my own $3.2 million estate. When I discovered that the son I'd sacrificed everything for, taught everything I knew about real estate and business development, and trusted with my most vulnerable moments, as I aged, had been quietly planning my relegation to the cellar, while assuming he could manipulate me into accepting a subservient role in what had been my own home, built with my own vision and paid for with my own success, all while living rent-free, in luxury that represented the culmination of 25 years of strategic property development and business excellence. My name is Margaret Elizabeth Thornfield, and at 70 years old, I thought I'd found the perfect solution for maintaining family connections during my retirement years by inviting my son's family to share the magnificent Bellevue waterfront estate I'd designed and built in 1987, creating what I believed would be a multi-generational living arrangement that would benefit everyone while allowing me to gradually transition leadership of Thornfield Properties, the luxury development company I'd built from nothing into one of Washington State's most prestigious real estate firms, with a portfolio worth over $47 million. The 8,000-square-foot contemporary estate that David had been assuming would eventually become his inheritance was actually the crown jewel of my property portfolio, a custom-designed architectural masterpiece sitting on 3 acres of private Lake Washington waterfront with panoramic views of Mercer Island, the Cascade Mountains, and Seattle's skyline that had been featured in Architectural Digest, Pacific Northwest Home and Garden, and Seattle Magazine as an example of how sophisticated residential design could enhance, rather than compromise, natural environmental beauty. What I hadn't expected was that my son David and his wife Patricia would view my generous invitation to share this luxury estate not as an extraordinary opportunity that provided them with lifestyle and financial advantages they could never achieve independently, but as evidence that I was becoming dependent and malleable, ready to accept whatever living arrangements they deemed appropriate for an aging mother whose business acumen, financial independence, and property ownership rights were apparently no longer relevant to family decision-making processes. The 3-story waterfront mansion in Bellevue's exclusive Medina neighborhood had been my personal architectural statement, and the culmination of everything I'd learned about luxury residential development during 2.5 decades of creating custom homes for Seattle's most successful technology entrepreneurs, venture capitalists, professional athletes, and entertainment industry executives who demanded both aesthetic excellence and investment-grade property appreciation. By 2024, the estate had become worth over $3.2 million due to both its premier, waterfront location and the sophisticated architectural design that had incorporated sustainable building practices, smart home technology, and luxury amenities that had kept the property at the forefront of contemporary residential excellence while maintaining timeless appeal that would ensure continued value appreciation across multiple decades. My late husband, Robert James Thornfield, had been a senior captain for Alaska Airlines who'd shared my vision for creating extraordinary residential properties that would serve successful families for generations while building long-term wealth through strategic real estate development and investment. At the time of his death from heart complications in 2019, Robert had been actively supportive of my decision to transition from hands-on property development to portfolio management, understanding that our real estate holdings had grown substantial enough to provide financial security and creative satisfaction without requiring the intensive travel and project oversight that had characterized my earlier career phases. Estate featured architectural details and luxury amenities that reflected everything I'd learned about creating homes that would maintain their market leadership and aesthetic appeal across changing design trends and evolving lifestyle requirements. The main level included formal living and dining areas with floor-to-ceiling windows that captured spectacular water views throughout the day, a gourmet kitchen with professional-grade appliances and custom cabinetry, a library with built-in shelving for my extensive collection of business development texts and architectural references, and a conservatory with climate-controlled environment for my orchid collection. The second level housed 4-bedroom suites, including a master suite that occupied the entire south wing with private balcony access, spa-like bathroom facilities, featuring heated marble floors and steam shower, and a walk-in closet that had been designed to accommodate the extensive wardrobe requirements of someone who regularly attended high-level business functions, community fundraising events, and industry conferences throughout the Pacific Northwest and California. The third floor contained my sophisticated home office, where I'd managed Thornfield properties for over a decade, complete with multiple workstations, conference capabilities, for client meetings and secure storage for confidential business documents and property development plans. This level also included a media room with state-of-the-art entertainment systems and a temperature-controlled wine cellar that had been stocked with vintages reflecting both my appreciation for quality and my understanding that successful business relationships often required appropriate hospitality and entertainment capabilities. The estate's basement level had been designed as luxury recreational and utility space, featuring a fitness center with professional-grade equipment, an indoor swimming pool with spa facilities, a temperature-controlled workshop for my hobby woodworking projects, and extensive storage areas for seasonal items, business records, and the accumulated possessions that reflected 70 years of successful living and 25 years of business achievement in competitive real estate markets. The property's location in Medina had provided both privacy and prestige, situating the estate among homes owned by Microsoft executives, Amazon leadership, professional sports figures, and entertainment industry professionals who valued sophisticated architecture, environmental beauty, and the kind of exclusive community access that had made the area one of the most desirable residential locations in the entire Pacific Northwest region. The waterfront amenities included a private boat dock with deep water access capable of accommodating vessels up to 40 feet in length, a waterfront deck with outdoor kitchen and dining facilities, and professionally maintained gardens that had been designed to provide year-round beauty while requiring minimal maintenance and supporting local wildlife populations. My decision to invite David's family to share the estate had been motivated by both practical considerations and emotional desires for increased family connection during what I'd assumed would be my retirement years. After Robert's death, I'd been living alone in 8,000 square feet of luxury space that had been designed for entertaining and family gatherings, feeling isolated despite the property's beauty and the continuing satisfaction of my business success with Thornfield Properties. The Medina estate had been perfect for two people with active professional and social lives, featuring multiple entertaining areas, guest accommodations, and the kind of sophisticated amenities that had supported our extensive business networking and community involvement. But as a single occupant who was beginning to consider reducing my active business management responsibilities while wanting to maintain family connections and continue contributing to community development projects, the property had felt overwhelming and underutilized. David's family had been struggling with housing costs in Seattle's inflated real estate market, renting a modest three-bedroom house in Redmond while trying to save for a down payment on property that would provide adequate space for their growing family, while maintaining reasonable commuting distance to David's position as a project manager with a Microsoft subsidiary and Patricia's work as a marketing coordinator with a downtown Seattle advertising agency. "Mom, your invitation to share the estate is incredibly generous and could be life-changing for our family," David had said when I'd first proposed the arrangement during a family dinner at their cramped rental house in November 2022. "The kids would love having access to the waterfront and that amazing property, and Patricia and I could finally start building some real financial stability instead of just paying rent that increases every year." The enthusiasm David had demonstrated for the shared living arrangement had seemed genuine and had been accompanied by appropriate expressions of gratitude for the extraordinary financial opportunity and lifestyle enhancement that the estate would provide for his family's long-term security, educational advantages, and quality of life improvements. Patricia had been equally appreciative of the proposed arrangement, recognizing that access to luxury waterfront living would provide both immediate lifestyle benefits and long-term financial advantages that would accelerate their family's wealth building while providing their children with educational opportunities, recreational access, and social connections that would significantly enhance their development and future prospects. "Margaret, this arrangement represents an opportunity that we never could have imagined," Patricia had said during our initial planning discussions in December 2022. "The schools in the Medina area are among the best in Washington state, and the children would have access to activities, experiences, and social connections that we could never provide independently. We're deeply grateful for your generosity and excited about the opportunity to spend quality time together as an extended family while building our own financial foundation." The shared living arrangement had been formalized through comprehensive legal documentation prepared by my estate planning attorney that had protected everyone's interests while establishing clear expectations about property maintenance responsibilities, household expense sharing, privacy boundaries, and long-term planning considerations that would ensure the arrangement would remain sustainable and beneficial for all parties across multiple years. The legal framework had specified that David's family would have full access to the main living areas, guest accommodations, and recreational amenities while contributing to utility costs and property maintenance expenses proportional to their usage. The arrangement had also included provisions for gradual transition of property management responsibilities, with David potentially assuming increasing involvement in estate oversight as I reduced my active business management duties. For the first year of the shared living arrangement, the experience had exceeded everyone's expectations, providing David's family with luxury living accommodations they'd never experienced while giving me the daily family interaction, household energy, and sense of purposeful contribution that had made the large estate feel like a true multi-generational family home rather than an empty showcase of past business achievements. The children, 10-year-old Sarah and 8-year-old Michael, had flourished in the new environment. With access to private waterfront recreation, excellent educational opportunities, and the kind of stable, beautiful living space that had provided both security and inspiration for their academic performance and personal development. Sarah had joined the Medina Elementary School's advanced academic program and had begun taking sailing lessons at the nearby yacht club, while Michael had discovered a passion for nature photography using the estate's gardens and waterfront as his primary subjects. David had seemed genuinely grateful for the opportunity to live in luxury accommodations while building substantial savings that would eventually enable him to purchase quality property independently, and Patricia had regularly expressed appreciation for both the dramatic lifestyle enhancement and the opportunity to develop closer relationships with extended family while contributing to household management and community involvement. The first year had also provided opportunities for shared family activities that had strengthened relationships and created positive memories. Holiday celebrations had been spectacular, with the estate's formal dining areas and entertainment spaces providing perfect settings for gatherings that had included extended family, business associates, and community friends. Summer months had featured regular waterfront barbecues, boat excursions, and informal entertaining that had made the property feel alive and purposeful. But what I hadn't anticipated was that the comfort and security of the shared living arrangement would gradually transform David and Patricia's attitude toward my autonomy, independence, and continuing role as both property owner and family matriarch. Rather than maintaining appropriate respect for my generosity and recognition of my continued business competence, they had begun viewing me not as the successful business owner who was graciously sharing her achievements, but as an aging dependent whose continued presence in the main living areas was becoming inconvenient and whose ongoing business activities were outdated distractions from what they considered more important family priorities. The shift in their attitude had been subtle initially, manifesting as small suggestions about simplifying my daily routines, reducing my business commitments, and focusing on family relationships rather than professional responsibilities. But by early 2024, their suggestions had evolved into more direct attempts to influence my lifestyle choices and limit my autonomy in ways that had revealed their fundamental misunderstanding of both my capabilities and my intentions for the shared living arrangement. By March 2024, David and Patricia had begun treating the estate as though it were their primary residence, and I were an elderly relative who required management rather than respect. Their suggestions about my daily activities had become more frequent and more presumptuous, reflecting their apparent belief that my age automatically qualified them to make decisions about my lifestyle, business involvement, and use of my own property. "Mom, don't you think it would be better if you scaled back some of your business activities?" David had suggested during one particularly frustrating family dinner conversation. "You've already achieved so much, and at your age, wouldn't it be more relaxing to focus on family time and personal interests rather than continuing to deal with all that business stress?" The implication that my continued business involvement was somehow inappropriate for my age had been both insulting and concerning, particularly since Thornfield Properties continued to be highly profitable and my leadership remained essential for maintaining client relationships and strategic planning that protected our substantial real estate portfolio. Patricia had been even more direct in expressing her belief that my business activities were becoming burdensome and that my time would be better spent supporting household management and childcare responsibilities that would be more appropriate for someone my age. "Margaret, we really appreciate everything you've built with your business," Patricia had said during one particularly condescending conversation. "But wouldn't it be wonderful if you could spend more time with the grandchildren and maybe help with some of the household management tasks? You have so much experience with organizing and planning that could really benefit our family life." The suggestion that I should abandon my business responsibilities to become an unpaid household manager and childcare provider had revealed their complete failure to understand both my professional identity and my expectations for the shared living arrangement. Standing in my home office that April morning, reviewing the quarterly reports from Thornfield Properties that documented continued growth and profitability despite my reduced day-to-day involvement, I had no understanding that the family members I'd been supporting and housing for over a year were about to make a suggestion so insulting and presumptuous that it would fundamentally change our relationship forever and demonstrate exactly what happened when people mistook generosity for weakness and assumed they could manipulate someone with my resources and determination. The real estate expertise, financial resources, business relationships, and legal property ownership that David and Patricia had been taking for granted were actually going to become the foundation for teaching them the most comprehensive lesson they'd ever receive about respecting the people who'd made their comfortable lifestyle possible, and understanding that some suggestions have consequences that can reshape entire family futures in ways they'd never anticipated. Sometimes the people who think you're just an aging family member whose best days are behind her are about to discover you're actually someone with the power to make decisions that will transform their understanding of what's possible when business Acumen meets unlimited determination and the legal authority to change everything with a single phone call to the right real estate professionals. David and Patricia were about to learn that suggesting someone move to the basement of her own property was the beginning of the most expensive lesson in respect and gratitude they'd ever receive, and the most dramatic demonstration of what happens when you underestimate someone who built a multi-million-dollar empire and retained both the knowledge and the power to use it when circumstances required decisive action that would change everything forever. Standing in my Lake Washington home office that April morning, reviewing the financial statements and property portfolios that documented 25 years of strategic real estate development across 3 states, I realized I needed to understand how I'd reached this point of casual dismissal from family members who should have been celebrating my continued business success and professional competence rather than treating my achievements as outdated relics from a bygone era. But to comprehend the full scope of what was building toward that devastating basement suggestion, you need to know about the empire of luxury properties, business relationships, and financial resources I'd built before David and Patricia decided. My expertise was something to be managed rather than respected, an empire that had made their systematic underestimation both possible and ultimately the most expensive mistake they would ever make. My journey to that frustrating April morning had begun 70 years earlier, when I'd been born Margaret Elizabeth Richardson to parents who understood that a woman's financial independence and professional competence were not optional conveniences, but essential survival skills in a world that rarely offered women second chances or easy paths to business ownership and substantial wealth accumulation. My father, William Alexander Richardson, had been a construction foreman for the Washington State Department of Transportation, specializing in highway infrastructure projects, bridge construction, and public works developments that had helped build the modern transportation system connecting Seattle to the rest of the Pacific Northwest. He'd spent his career understanding complex engineering requirements, managing construction teams, and ensuring that projects worth millions of taxpayer dollars were completed according to specifications that would keep them functioning safely and efficiently for decades under the most challenging weather conditions and heavy usage demands. "Margaret," my father had said during one of our regular Sunday evening conversations about my future plans when I'd been 14 years old, "the most important thing you can learn is that real estate and construction are the foundation of all wealth in America. People always need places to live and work, and the person who understands how to provide quality properties will never lack for business opportunities or financial security." My mother, Dorothy Rose Richardson, had been equally influential in shaping my understanding of what was possible for an educated woman willing to work harder and think more strategically than the people around her. She'd worked as a bookkeeper for a small real estate development company in Tacoma, while also managing our household with the kind of meticulous attention to financial detail and long-term planning that had kept our family financially stable. Despite the economic uncertainties that had characterized the 1950s and 1960s, "Darling," my mother had told me during my high school years, "never depend on anyone else for your financial security or professional fulfillment. The women I know who have the most independence and respect are those who understand business, principles, can analyze investment opportunities, and build their own wealth rather than hoping someone else will take care of them." The Richardson household had been financially conscious and business-oriented in ways that had prepared me for the entrepreneurial career I would eventually build. Dinner conversations had regularly included discussions of property values, construction, costs, business management principles, and the importance of building assets that would generate income and appreciate in value while providing security and independence that couldn't be taken away by economic downturns or changes in personal circumstances. Our home had been filled with real estate magazines, business publications, and the kind of analytical thinking that had made complex investment decisions seem logical rather than overwhelming. By age 16, I'd already been helping my mother with basic accounting tasks and had developed sophisticated understanding of profit margins, cash flow management, and the relationship between risk and return that would characterize my entire approach to business development and investment strategy. My academic journey had begun at Tacoma's Stadium High School, a public school known for its rigorous business and mathematics programs, and its emphasis on preparing students for careers in commerce and professional services, rather than just traditional academic subjects. The school's approach to education had emphasized practical problem-solving, precise analytical thinking, and the kind of personal discipline and time management skills that would serve me well in competitive business environments throughout my career. At Stadium High, I'd excelled in mathematics, business courses, and economics, while also developing the organizational abilities and attention to detail that would characterize my entire approach to property development and business management. The school's student body had included children of small business owners, real estate professionals, contractors, and skilled tradespeople who understood that business education was the primary path to economic advancement and professional recognition. In Washington's growing development and construction industries, Miss Richardson, my business mathematics teacher had written in a recommendation letter, demonstrates exceptional ability in financial analysis and investment planning. She has the mathematical intelligence to understand complex business relationships and the practical judgment to make decisions that balance risk with opportunity in ways that suggest natural talent for business management. My senior thesis project at Stadium High had focused on residential property development in the Puget Sound region, research that had required me to analyze demographic trends, construction costs, zoning regulations, and market conditions while also developing original investment proposals that demonstrated how strategic property acquisition and development could generate substantial returns while providing quality housing that served community needs. The University of Washington's School of Business had been the obvious next step, offering one of the most respected business programs on the West Coast, and a curriculum that combined rigorous theoretical education with practical experience in real-world business applications and entrepreneurship development. During my 4 years at the University of Washington, I'd maintained a 3.8 GPA while also working part-time as an assistant to a residential real estate broker in Seattle, and completing internships with major property development firms that had provided hands-on experience in every aspect of real estate transactions from initial property analysis to financing arrangements to construction oversight and final sales processes. The business program at Washington had been particularly demanding, requiring students to develop expertise in accounting principles, financial analysis, marketing strategies, organizational management, and business law, while also completing complex case studies that demonstrated analytical thinking, strategic planning abilities, and understanding of how successful businesses function as integrated systems serving multiple stakeholder interests. Margaret has demonstrated exceptional ability in both analytical and practical aspects of business education, my real estate finance professor had written during my senior year. Her projects consistently demonstrate sophisticated understanding of market dynamics and investment principles, while also exhibiting the kind of strategic thinking and risk assessment capabilities that characterize successful entrepreneurs. My senior capstone project at Washington had examined innovative approaches to residential development in the Pacific Northwest, focusing on how traditional building methods could be combined with contemporary design principles and environmental considerations to create properties that were both profitable for developers and appealing to buyers seeking quality housing with long-term investment potential. The project had been selected for presentation at the Pacific Northwest Regional Business Students Conference and had received recognition from the Washington State Association of Realtors as an outstanding example of how young business professionals could contribute to solving contemporary housing challenges while building successful careers in real estate development and investment. After graduating magna cum laude from Washington in 1976, I'd spent 18 months working for a small commercial real estate firm in Bellevue, providing market analysis and investment evaluation services for clients seeking to acquire or develop retail and office properties in the rapidly growing suburbs surrounding Seattle. The position had been excellent preparation for understanding the complex financial and legal aspects of real estate transactions, while providing experience in the kind of detailed analytical work that would become central to my career specialization in luxury residential development. The Bellevue firm experience had also introduced me to the sophisticated relationship between property development and community planning. As I'd watched project after project succeed or fail based on developers' understanding of demographic trends, infrastructure development, and the changing lifestyle preferences of affluent professionals who were choosing suburban locations for both residential and business purposes. Margaret, you have a natural talent for understanding how real estate markets actually function, my supervisor at the Bellevue firm had observed after I'd successfully identified a development opportunity that had generated substantial profits for our client. You don't just understand financial principles. You understand how communities develop and how to anticipate market trends that create investment opportunities. One of my most successful projects at the Bellevue firm had involved helping a small investor group identify and acquire a portfolio of single-family homes in emerging neighborhoods that had been overlooked by larger development companies but offered excellent potential for appreciation due to infrastructure improvements, school district quality, and proximity to employment centers that were attracting young professional families. The project had required 6 months of intensive market research, demographic analysis, and financial modeling that had enabled the investors to acquire 12 properties at below-market prices and develop them into luxury rental units that had generated both substantial monthly income and significant capital appreciation over the following 3 years. Ms. Richardson has demonstrated exceptional ability in identifying investment opportunities that others overlook, the investor group had written in a testimonial letter. Her analytical skills and market knowledge enabled us to build a profitable portfolio while providing quality housing that serves community needs. Her expertise created value for everyone involved. The success of the small-scale residential development project had been particularly meaningful because it had demonstrated how sophisticated market analysis could create win-win situations that benefited investors, residents, and communities while establishing the foundation for larger and more ambitious development projects that could generate substantial wealth and professional recognition. It was during my time at the Bellevue firm that I'd first begun to understand the enormous opportunity that existed in luxury residential development for professionals who could combine sophisticated financial analysis with high-quality construction management and marketing strategies that appealed to affluent buyers seeking properties that would enhance their lifestyle while building long-term wealth. This insight had led directly to my decision to pursue a position with Morrison Development Group, one of Seattle's most prestigious residential development companies, where I believed I could develop the expertise necessary to specialize in the kind of luxury property development that could transform how successful families thought about the relationship between housing and wealth building. The interview process at Morrison Development had been comprehensive and challenging, involving multiple meetings with senior partners, project managers, and financial specialists who were evaluating not just my analytical abilities, but also my potential for building the kind of client relationships and community connections that would drive long-term business success in Seattle's competitive luxury real estate market. Ms. Richardson, James Morrison had said during my final interview, luxury residential development is ultimately about understanding how successful people want to live and having the expertise to create properties that exceed their expectations while building substantial value. Do you think you can develop that kind of market understanding while also mastering the complex financial and construction management skills that distinguish truly professional development companies? My answer had been based on my experience analyzing diverse property types and market segments at the Bellevue firm. Mr. Morrison, I've learned that successful real estate development requires combining sophisticated financial analysis with genuine understanding of what buyers value most. I believe my background in market research and my experience with complex investment evaluation has prepared me to contribute to development projects that serve both client needs and business objectives. The starting position at Morrison Development had been as a junior analyst in the residential development division, earning $28,000 per year while learning the sophisticated market analysis, project management, and client relationship approaches that had made Morrison one of the most respected luxury development companies in the Pacific Northwest. But what had distinguished me from other entry-level employees had been my systematic approach to understanding not just how to identify profitable development opportunities, but why certain property types and locations consistently outperformed others and how different market factors could be analyzed to predict long-term investment returns. Within my first 3 months at Morrison Development, I'd immersed myself in the company's portfolio of completed projects, studying every aspect of their development philosophy, financial strategies, and construction management approaches, while also building relationships with the contractors, architects, and marketing professionals who were essential partners in transforming raw land into luxury residential communities. Within 6 months, I'd begun identifying opportunities to improve project profitability and market appeal by suggesting better integration between financial planning and design development, more effective marketing strategies that targeted affluent buyers' specific lifestyle preferences, and innovative construction approaches that could enhance quality while controlling costs that affected both project margins and final sales prices. Margaret processes complex market information faster and more accurately than analysts with years of experience, James Morrison had noted in my first performance review. But more importantly, she understands how development decisions affect both project profitability and buyer satisfaction in ways that demonstrate genuine business maturity and market sophistication. The promotion to senior analyst had come after 18 months, recognizing not just my analytical abilities, but also my capacity to manage client relationships, coordinate with consulting professionals, and handle the complex project administration. That was essential for successful development projects in an increasingly competitive and regulated market environment. As a senior analyst, I'd been responsible for managing medium-sized residential development projects from initial land acquisition through construction completion and final sales, requiring both creative problem-solving skills and practical business management abilities that ensured projects delivered exceptional value while being completed on schedule and within budget constraints that protected profitability margins. The most challenging aspect of the senior analyst position had been learning to balance buyer preferences with construction limitations and financial requirements, developing project plans that satisfied everyone's needs while maintaining the quality standards and profit margins that had built Morrison Development's reputation for excellence in luxury residential development. My first major independent project had been the development of a custom home community in Mercer Island, a prestigious undertaking that had required sophisticated market analysis, innovative financing arrangements, and construction management that would create luxury homes appealing to Seattle's most successful business executives while generating substantial returns for Morrison's investment partners. The project had required extensive research into demographic trends, lifestyle preferences, and architectural styles, while also developing innovative marketing strategies that would differentiate our properties from competing developments and justify premium pricing that reflected the superior quality and exclusive location. Margaret has created a development plan that perfectly balances market appeal with financial viability, the Mercer Island project investors had written in a letter to James Morrison. Her market research and financial analysis have resulted in a project that exceeds our profit expectations, while creating homes that have generated extraordinary buyer satisfaction and community recognition. The Mercer Island project had been featured in Seattle Magazine and had received recognition from the Washington State Home Builders Association as an outstanding example of how thoughtful development could enhance community character while providing luxury housing that served successful families' needs for both lifestyle enhancement and long-term investment appreciation. The promotion to development manager in 1982 had placed me among Morrison Development's senior management team and had given me responsibility for the company's most challenging and profitable residential projects, including luxury custom communities, waterfront developments, and innovative construction projects that required the highest levels of financial expertise and market understanding. As a development manager, I'd also been responsible for mentoring junior staff, developing new market approaches that kept Morrison at the forefront of luxury residential development, and maintaining relationships with the investors, architects, and construction professionals, who were essential sources of capital and expertise that supported the company's continued growth and industry leadership. The most significant project during my development manager period had been the planning and construction oversight for the Bellevue Heights luxury community, where I'd been responsible for transforming 40 acres of raw land into an exclusive residential development that would establish new standards for luxury living in the Seattle metropolitan area. The Bellevue Heights project had required 3 years of planning, environmental assessment, and construction management that had resulted in a 28-home community that preserved significant natural areas while providing diverse housing options that served successful families across different life stages and lifestyle preferences. Margaret Thornfield has created a development that proves luxury and environmental responsibility can enhance, rather than compromise each other, the Washington Environmental Council had noted when presenting the project with their Sustainable Development Award. Her innovative planning approach has established new standards for responsible luxury development in the Pacific Northwest. The promotion to partner in 1987 had recognized not just my individual development achievements, but also my contributions to company management, business expansion, and the strategic planning that had helped Morrison Development maintain its position as Seattle's most respected luxury residential development company. As a partner, I'd been responsible for strategic planning, business development, and oversight of Morrison's entire luxury residential division, managing a team of 15 development professionals while also maintaining direct involvement in the company's most important and complex projects that defined industry standards for quality and innovation. My partnership responsibilities had included developing new services and market approaches that differentiated Morrison from competitors, maintaining relationships with key investors and industry partners, and ensuring that all projects met the company's standards for financial performance, construction quality, and buyer satisfaction that had built Morrison's reputation over 20 years of successful development. The most ambitious project during my partnership tenure had been the master planning and development oversight for the Lake Washington Estates, a 200-acre luxury residential community that had required innovative approaches to environmental preservation, infrastructure development, and community design that would create a model for sustainable luxury living in rapidly growing suburban markets. The Lake Washington Estates project had involved 5 years of planning, regulatory approval, and construction oversight that had resulted in a residential community that preserved 60% of the original forest while providing 85 custom home sites that offered privacy, luxury amenities, and appreciation potential that had made the development one of the most successful luxury communities in Washington state history. Margaret Thornfield has created a development model that proves environmental stewardship and luxury living can work together to create extraordinary value for both residents and investors, the Pacific Northwest Development Council had noted. When presenting the project with their Excellence in Community Planning Award, her innovative approach has established new standards for sustainable luxury development. By 1992, when I'd made the decision to establish Thornfield Properties as an independent development company, I'd accumulated 15 years of experience in every aspect of luxury residential development from land acquisition to final sales, had developed expertise in sustainable design and community planning that was recognized throughout the region, and had built relationships with investors, contractors, and design professionals that would provide the foundation for a successful independent practice. The decision to start my own company had been motivated by my desire to focus exclusively on the kind of innovative luxury development projects that had become my specialty, working with investors and buyers who valued exceptional quality and were willing to invest in development approaches that would create lasting value while enhancing rather than compromising environmental and community character. Thornfield Properties had begun operations in a converted warehouse space in Seattle's Pioneer Square, with a staff of 4 development professionals and a portfolio of investors who had followed me from Morrison Development because they valued the personalized attention and innovative development approaches that had characterized my work throughout my career. The company's first major project had been the development of the Cascade View luxury community, transforming 25 acres of challenging hillside terrain into 12 custom home sites that offered spectacular mountain views while incorporating sustainable design principles and construction techniques that minimized environmental impact while maximizing long-term value appreciation. Margaret Thornfield has created residential properties that honor the natural landscape while providing luxury living that exceeds anything available in conventional development, the Cascade View Homeowners Association had noted in their community newsletter. Her development approach demonstrates how environmental responsibility and luxury living can enhance each other. Over the following 15 years, Thornfield Properties had completed over 75 luxury residential projects ranging from small-scale, custom communities to major waterfront developments to the creation of exclusive estate properties for Seattle's most successful business leaders and entertainment industry professionals. Every project had reflected my commitment to understanding clients' individual needs while developing properties that enhanced both their lifestyle and their long-term wealth, building through strategic real estate investment. The project that had brought me the most personal satisfaction had been the development of the Puget Sound Preserve, a 50-acre waterfront community that had required innovative approaches to environmental protection while creating luxury homes that supported both family living and business entertainment for residents whose professional success required sophisticated residential amenities and prestigious addresses. Margaret Thornfield has designed a community that enables successful families to live in harmony with the natural environment while maintaining the luxury amenities and social connections that support their professional and personal success. The residents had written in a letter that I'd treasured throughout my career. Her understanding of both environmental stewardship and luxury living has created a community that enhances every aspect of our lives. The recognition that had meant the most to me had come in 2010, when the Washington State Association of Realtors had presented me with their Lifetime Achievement Award, acknowledging not just individual projects, but my overall contribution to advancing sustainable luxury development and environmental responsibility throughout the Pacific Northwest. Real estate industry. Margaret Thornfield has spent 25 years proving that luxury residential development can enhance both individual wealth and community character, while establishing standards for environmental responsibility that have influenced developers throughout the region, the award citation had read. Her work demonstrates that innovation and tradition, luxury and sustainability, individual success and community benefit can be integrated through development excellence that serves both present needs and future generations. Standing in my home office that April morning, surrounded by the awards, project photographs, and professional relationships that represented 25 years of development achievement, I had no understanding that the family members I'd been supporting and housing for over a year were about to dismiss my expertise as outdated irrelevance, revealing the true scope of their ingratitude and setting in motion events that would demonstrate exactly what happened when people underestimated someone with my capabilities and resources. The real estate expertise, professional relationships, industry recognition, and financial resources that David and Patricia were dismissing as a retirement hobby were actually going to become the foundation for teaching them the most comprehensive lesson they'd ever receive about respecting success, honoring expertise, and understanding that some people respond to disrespect with actions that reshape everyone's understanding of what's possible when experience meets determination and unlimited financial power. Sometimes the people who think your career is just ancient history are about to discover you're actually someone with the power to make decisions they've never seen coming and could never afford to reverse. David and Patricia were about to learn that dismissing someone's professional legacy was the beginning of the most spectacular demonstration of business competence they'd ever witness. Standing in my Bellevue home office that April morning, reviewing the family photographs and business documents that documented years of successful collaboration and mutual respect. I couldn't help but remember how different David's attitude toward my real estate expertise had been just 5 years earlier, when he'd been a struggling Microsoft project manager, desperate for the kind of financial guidance and property investment opportunities that only someone with my experience and portfolio could provide. It was a relationship that had been built on genuine respect for my capabilities and sincere gratitude for the sacrifices I'd made to ensure his success. A time when David had spoken with such enthusiasm about learning from my expertise and building a family real estate portfolio that would honor the professional standards and innovative approaches that had defined my career. But what I discovered when that devastating basement conversation unfolded would transform my disappointment and shock into a cold, calculating determination that would change everything forever and demonstrate that some 70-year-old women fight back with financial decisions that reshape entire family dynamics and community understanding of what's possible when business expertise meets unlimited determination and the legal authority to make decisions that can alter lives permanently. The foundation of my relationship with David had been laid during his childhood and adolescence, when he'd spent countless hours accompanying me to construction sites, investor meetings, and property evaluations that had given him first-hand exposure to every aspect of professional real estate development and investment analysis. Unlike most children who viewed their parents' work as boring adult responsibilities to be avoided, David had been genuinely fascinated by the complex coordination required to transform raw land into luxury residential communities that generated substantial wealth while enhancing community character. From age 10, David had been my regular companion during weekend property tours, where I'd been evaluating potential development sites and conducting market analysis for investment opportunities. These experiences had provided him with practical education in real estate principles, market analysis, and investment evaluation that most people never received, even in formal business education programs. "Mom, how do you know which properties will make money?" David had asked during one of our site visits to a potential waterfront development in Kirkland, demonstrating the kind of analytical curiosity that had suggested he might have real potential for success in real estate investment and property management. "David, you have to understand both market trends and construction possibilities," I'd explained, showing him how to evaluate factors like location, zoning potential, infrastructure access, and demographic trends. "The investors are depending on me to identify opportunities that will generate substantial returns, and the only way to do that is through careful analysis of everything that affects property value and development potential." These early experiences had given David sophisticated understanding of real estate markets, investment principles, and the business relationships that were essential for successful property development and portfolio building. By age 16, he'd been able to identify development opportunities, evaluate market conditions, and understand the complex financing arrangements that kept major projects moving efficiently toward completion and profitability. During his high school years, David had worked summers as my unpaid research assistant, helping with market analysis, property evaluations, and client communications that had provided him with comprehensive exposure to real estate investment, while also demonstrating the intellectual demands and professional standards that characterized serious property development and wealth building. David has developed remarkable understanding of both the analytical and relationship aspects of real estate investment, I'd noted in a recommendation letter for his college applications. His exposure to professional development standards and investor relationship management has given him preparation for business education that most students never receive. David's decision to pursue business administration with a technology focus at the University of Washington had been directly influenced by his childhood exposure to my real estate practice and his understanding of how business expertise and technology knowledge could be combined to create superior investment analysis and property management systems. Throughout his college years, he'd regularly consulted with me about coursework, career planning, and the industry relationships that would be essential for establishing a successful business career after graduation. The financial support I'd provided for David's education had represented a significant investment in both his future and our family's continued involvement in Washington's business and real estate communities. His business degree had cost over $95,000 in tuition, fees, and living expenses, money that I'd earned through property development projects, and had chosen to invest in his education rather than in expanding my own company or increasing my personal lifestyle expenditures. "Mom, I know how much you're sacrificing to help me get this education," David had said during one of our regular phone conversations while he'd been studying at Washington. "I promise I'll use this opportunity to build something that makes you proud and that honors everything you've taught me about excellence and integrity in business." David's gratitude for my financial support had been accompanied by genuine appreciation for the professional mentoring and industry connections that I'd been providing throughout his college years. During summer breaks, he'd worked as an intern with property management companies and real estate investment firms that I'd recommended, gaining practical experience that had enhanced his classroom education while building relationships that would support his career development. Upon graduation, in 2006, David had faced the challenge of establishing himself in Seattle's competitive technology industry during a period of rapid growth but intense competition for positions with companies that offered both good salaries and long-term career advancement opportunities. The tech boom had created thousands of new jobs, but had also attracted talented candidates from across the country who were competing for the same opportunities. Rather than allowing David to struggle through the competitive job market alone, I'd leveraged my business relationships and industry connections to help him secure a position with Microsoft, where my real estate dealings with several senior executives had provided me with the personal relationships necessary to ensure David received serious consideration for positions that matched his education and interests. The Microsoft position David had ultimately secured had been as a project coordinator in their enterprise software division, earning $72,000 per year with excellent benefits and opportunities for advancement. But more importantly, the position had provided him with exposure to large-scale business operations, technology project management, and the kind of analytical thinking that would serve him well in any future business endeavors. My contribution to establishing David's career had gone far beyond networking assistance to include practical support that had been essential for his early success. I'd provided him with a substantial loan for his first car purchase, had helped him secure favorable financing for his initial apartment rental, and had given him access to the financial planning and investment advice that I'd developed over 25 years of business success. More importantly, I'd used my business knowledge and professional relationships to help David understand how to navigate corporate politics, build productive working relationships, and develop the kind of strategic thinking that would be essential for long-term career advancement in competitive business environments. "Margaret, we're so grateful that you helped David understand how to approach his career strategically," David's supervisor at Microsoft had said during a company social event where I'd been invited as David's guest. "His professional maturity and business acumen are exceptional for someone his age, and his analytical approach reflects the kind of training that most people don't receive until much later in their careers." The introduction of Patricia into our family dynamic had occurred in 2008, when David had begun dating a marketing coordinator, whose background in advertising and public relations had provided her with exposure to Seattle's business community. Though her experience had been limited to the creative and promotional aspects, rather than the financial analysis and strategic planning that characterized my real estate development practice. Patricia's initial attitude toward my professional work had been appropriately respectful and genuinely curious about the business principles and investment strategies that had made my property development company successful. She'd asked thoughtful questions about market analysis, had shown interest in visiting development projects, and had expressed appreciation for the professional legacy that had provided David with unique advantages in establishing his career. "Margaret, I'm fascinated by the sophistication of your real estate business," Patricia had said during one of our early family dinners. "David has explained how much your expertise and connections have meant to his career development, and I Can see why your clients have such confidence in your professional judgment and investment recommendations. Patricia's background in marketing had given her practical understanding of brand development, customer relationship management, and the importance of reputation in maintaining long-term business success. Her appreciation for my work had been informed by professional experience that had taught her to recognize the difference between superior and mediocre business practices. During their engagement period, Patricia had regularly sought my advice about financial planning, investment decisions, and career development strategies that had demonstrated both respect for my expertise and genuine interest in learning from my decades of experience in business management and wealth building. Margaret, I really value your perspective on our financial planning, Patricia had said when she and David had been preparing for marriage in 2009. Your business knowledge helps me understand investment principles and long-term financial strategies that I would never have learned from my marketing background. The collaborative relationship that had developed between Patricia, David, and myself during this period had been based on mutual respect, shared interests in financial success, and genuine appreciation for the expertise that each of us brought to family discussions about career development, investment planning, and long-term wealth building. When David and Patricia had married in 2010, I'd provided substantial financial support for their wedding celebration, contributing $45,000 toward a reception that had been held at the Fairmont Olympic Hotel and had included 200 guests from both families and their professional networks. The wedding had been both a celebration of their relationship and a demonstration of our family's success and social connections within Seattle's business community. Following their marriage, I'd continued to provide financial guidance and support, helping them purchase their first home with a substantial down payment assistance of $85,000 that had enabled them to secure favorable financing and avoid private mortgage, insurance while building equity in a property that would appreciate substantially over the following decade. The home purchase process had provided additional opportunities for me to share my real estate expertise, helping David and Patricia understand market conditions, evaluate property values, and negotiate terms that had saved them thousands of dollars while ensuring they acquired a property with excellent long-term investment potential. Mom, your help with our home purchase has been incredible, David had said after they'd closed on their 3-bedroom house in Redmond. Your real estate knowledge saved us money and helped us avoid mistakes that could have cost us thousands of dollars. We never could have navigated this process successfully without your expertise. The peak of our family collaboration had lasted from 2010 through early 2022, a period when my real estate expertise, David's growing business acumen, and Patricia's marketing knowledge had combined to create a family partnership that had been both financially successful and personally satisfying for everyone involved. During this golden period, our family gatherings had become regular celebrations of shared success and collaborative planning. Rather than typical family social events, our time together had provided opportunities for sophisticated discussions about investment opportunities, business strategies, and financial planning that had enhanced everyone's wealth building while strengthening family relationships. Margaret, your guidance on our investment portfolio has generated returns that exceed anything we could have achieved independently, David had reported during one particularly memorable family dinner in 2015. The real estate investments you recommended have appreciated by over 40% in the past 3 years, and the rental income has provided financial security that's allowed us to take calculated risks with our other investments. My investment guidance had been based on my understanding of Seattle's real estate markets and my ability to identify properties with exceptional potential for both appreciation and rental income generation. I'd helped David and Patricia acquire a portfolio of 3 rental properties that had provided both monthly income and substantial equity growth while diversifying their wealth beyond their primary residence and retirement accounts. The investment properties had required careful analysis of neighborhood trends, renovation potential, and rental market conditions, but had resulted in a portfolio worth over $850,000 by 2020, representing one of the most successful small-scale real estate investment strategies in their age group. Patricia's contribution to our collaborative success had been equally valuable, providing marketing expertise and project management skills that had helped optimize the rental property's appeal while maintaining cost-effective operations that had maximized both rental income and long-term appreciation potential. Margaret, your real estate expertise combined with our execution capabilities has created investment results that have exceeded our most optimistic projections, Patricia had reported during our regular investment review meetings. The properties we've acquired together have performed better than the stock market, while providing diversification and tax advantages that have accelerated our wealth building. The financial success of our collaborative investments had been extraordinary, generating combined returns that had enabled David and Patricia to build substantial wealth while maintaining their primary careers and family responsibilities. Between 2010 and 2020, our joint investment activities had generated over $400,000 in combined appreciation and rental income, with profit-sharing arrangements that had benefited everyone while building long-term family wealth. But more importantly, the collaborative period had provided intellectual stimulation and family bonding that had made our time together both productive and personally fulfilling. Rather than feeling like I was losing relevance due to age, I'd been contributing essential expertise while continuing to learn and grow through exposure to contemporary business practices and market developments. The arrival of grandchildren had added another dimension to our family relationships, with Sarah in 2012 and Michael in 2014 providing new opportunities for sharing my love of business and property development, while creating additional reasons for maintaining close family connections that would support multiple generations. Sarah had shown particular interest in business planning and financial analysis, often spending hours at my desk while I'd worked on investment evaluations and property assessments. Her natural ability to understand numerical relationships and analytical thinking had suggested she might have inherited some of my business intelligence and strategic capabilities. Grandma Margaret, can you teach me how to find good properties like you do? Sarah had asked during one of our weekend visits when she'd been 8 years old. I want to learn how to make smart investments that help families build wealth and security. Michael had been more interested in the construction and development aspects of our work, regularly asking detailed questions about building processes, architectural planning, and project management. His enthusiasm for understanding how properties were developed and improved had suggested he might follow a path toward engineering or construction management careers. The opportunity to share my professional knowledge with grandchildren who were genuinely interested in business and real estate had provided additional satisfaction and had strengthened my sense that our family's involvement in property development and wealth building would continue for multiple generations. During this period, David and Patricia had also been supportive of my continued professional activities, encouraging me to maintain client relationships and pursue projects that utilized my expertise while providing intellectual stimulation and professional satisfaction during my transition toward retirement. Mom, we hope you'll continue taking on interesting real estate projects for as long as you enjoy the work, David had said when I'd been considering full retirement in 2018. Your expertise is too valuable to waste, and your continued involvement in the industry benefits all of us through the relationships and reputation you've built over 25 years. Their encouragement of my continued professional activity had reflected genuine respect for my capabilities and understanding that real estate expertise and business acumen didn't diminish with age when they were supported by decades of experience and ongoing engagement with contemporary market challenges. The first indication that David and Patricia's attitude toward my expertise was beginning to change had come during a family dinner in late 2022, when Patricia had made a casual comment about updating our investment approach to reflect contemporary market trends that might be more appealing to younger real estate investors and property managers. Margaret, your investment strategy has been incredibly successful, Patricia had said, using the kind of diplomatic language that had suggested she was trying to be tactful about a sensitive subject. But I'm wondering if we might want to consider some more contemporary approaches that would appeal to millennial investors who might have different risk tolerances and return expectations. The suggestion that my investment approach was somehow outdated or less effective for contemporary markets had been both surprising and concerning, given that our collaborative investments had been generating exceptional returns and had consistently outperformed broader market indices and conventional investment strategies. Patricia, I'm curious about what specific contemporary approaches you think would improve our investment performance, I'd responded, trying to understand the reasoning behind her suggestion. Our current properties have been appreciating at rates that exceed regional averages while generating rental income that provides both cash flow and tax advantages. But Patricia had been prepared with examples of investment strategies that she'd apparently been researching, presenting information about real estate investment trusts, crowdfunding platforms, and technology-based property management systems that she'd described as more efficient and less hands-on approaches to real estate investment. I think investors today are looking for more passive investment options that don't require direct property management, Patricia had explained, showing me articles about real estate investment platforms that had promised simplified investing without the complexities of property acquisition, tenant management, and maintenance oversight. David had supported Patricia's observations with comments about investment technologies and market platforms that had suggested he was beginning to question approaches that had been central to our collaborative success and had generated substantial wealth for their family. Mom, I'm seeing more people our age who prefer investments they can manage through apps and online platforms, David had said. Maybe we should consider some options that would give us real estate exposure without requiring us to deal with tenants, maintenance issues, and all the hands-on management that takes so much time. The implication that our successful hands-on investment approach was somehow outdated or inefficient had been particularly frustrating because it had ignored the superior returns and wealth building that had resulted from my expertise in property selection, market analysis, and strategic management that couldn't be replicated through passive investment platforms. But more concerning than their specific investment suggestions had been the underlying assumption that my real estate expertise needed to be modernized or simplified to remain relevant. Despite the continued success of our collaborative investments and the consistent outperformance of our property portfolio compared to alternative investment approaches. By early 2023, David and Patricia's questioning of my investment approaches had evolved into a more systematic pattern of dismissal and condescension that had affected both our business collaboration and our family relationships. The shift had become particularly apparent during investment planning meetings, where my recommendations had begun to be treated as suggestions to be evaluated and potentially rejected, rather than professional expertise to be respected and implemented. Margaret, we appreciate your perspective on this investment opportunity, David had said during one particularly frustrating planning session for a potential property acquisition. But Patricia and I think we need to pursue more contemporary investment approaches that reflect current market conditions rather than traditional real estate strategies. The use of the phrase, "We appreciate your perspective," had been a clear signal that my role in our collaboration was being redefined from lead investment advisor to consulting contributor whose recommendations could be accepted or rejected based on David and Patricia's judgment about market trends and investment preferences. But what had made their changing attitude even more insulting had been their assumption that age-related decline in my capabilities was responsible for what they perceived as resistance to innovation and adaptation to contemporary investment strategies. Mom, we understand that keeping up with current investment trends can be challenging, David had said during one particularly condescending conversation. But Patricia and I are in touch with younger investors every day, and we have a better sense of what approaches are working in today's markets. The suggestion that my resistance to their investment suggestions was evidence of aging-related inability to adapt, rather than professional judgment based on decades of successful experience, had been both personally hurtful and professionally insulting. Patricia had been even more direct in expressing her belief that my investment approach had become outdated and needed to be supplemented with younger perspectives that would keep our portfolio competitive in contemporary markets. "Margaret, I think it would be beneficial for our investments if we consulted with some younger financial advisors who could provide fresh perspectives on market trends," Patricia had suggested during a family business meeting. "Your experience is valuable, but we need to balance traditional approaches with contemporary innovation and technology-based strategies." The proposal to supplement my investment expertise with younger advisors had been a transparent attempt to diminish my role in our family's financial planning while maintaining access to my professional relationships and accumulated wealth. By mid-2023, the pattern of systematic dismissal and professional disrespect had extended beyond our investment collaboration to affect our shared living arrangement at the Medina estate. What had begun as subtle suggestions about my daily routines had evolved into more direct attempts to influence my lifestyle choices and limit my autonomy in ways that had revealed their fundamental misunderstanding of both my capabilities and my expectations for the shared living arrangement. The shift in their attitude had been most apparent in their assumptions about household responsibilities and their expectations for my role in family activities. Rather than maintaining appropriate respect for my position as property owner and family matriarch, they had begun treating me as though I were an elderly relative who required management rather than someone whose generosity had provided them with luxury living they could never afford independently. "Mom, don't you think it would be better if you spent more time helping with household management and childcare?" David had suggested during one particularly frustrating family dinner conversation. "You have so much experience with organizing and planning that could really benefit our day-to-day family life." The suggestion that I should abandon my business responsibilities to become an unpaid household manager and childcare provider had revealed their complete failure to understand both my professional identity and my expectations for our living arrangement. Patricia had been even more direct in expressing her belief that my business activities were becoming burdensome and that my time would be better spent supporting domestic responsibilities that would be more appropriate for someone my age. "Margaret, we really appreciate everything you've built with your business," Patricia had said during one particularly condescending conversation. "But wouldn't it be wonderful if you could spend more time with the grandchildren and maybe take on some of the household management tasks? You have so much knowledge about organizing and planning that could really help our family function more efficiently." The assumption that I would willingly abandon profitable business activities to provide free domestic services had been both insulting and concerning, particularly since my continued professional involvement was essential for maintaining the financial resources that supported our family's lifestyle and investment opportunities. The final betrayal had occurred during what should have been a routine family dinner in April 2024, when David and Patricia had used the occasion to make a suggestion so insulting and presumptuous that it had fundamentally changed our relationship forever and had demonstrated exactly what happened when people mistook generosity for weakness and assumed they could manipulate someone with my resources and determination. The evening had begun normally, with family conversation about the children's school activities, David's work projects, and Patricia's marketing campaigns. But I'd sensed an underlying tension that had suggested they'd been planning to use the occasion for a significant family announcement that would affect our living arrangements. "Mom, Patricia and I have been discussing some changes to our household organization," David had announced after dinner, using the formal tone that had suggested he'd been rehearsing the conversation. "We think it might be time to optimize our use of the estate's space to better accommodate everyone's needs and activities." The announcement itself had been vague enough to seem reasonable, but what had followed had been a systematic presentation of their plans for reorganizing the household, in ways that would effectively demote me from family matriarch to live-in domestic assistant. "Margaret, we've been thinking about how to make the most efficient use of all the estate's beautiful spaces," Patricia had said, using false enthusiasm to disguise what had clearly been a carefully planned proposal. "We think there are some opportunities to reorganize things in ways that would give everyone more privacy and better accommodate our different lifestyle needs. But David's specific suggestion had been the most shocking revelation of their true attitude toward my value, and their expectations for my role in the household I owned and had graciously shared with them. "Mom, we were thinking that it might make sense for you to move your living space to the basement level," David had said, delivering the insult with the casual tone of someone discussing minor household logistics. "The basement has been renovated with beautiful finishes, and it would give you more privacy while allowing us to use the main living areas for entertaining and family activities that require more space." The suggestion that I should relocate to the basement of my own property while they occupied the luxury living spaces I designed and paid for had been so shocking that I'd initially assumed I'd misunderstood his meaning. "David, are you suggesting that I move to the basement while you and Patricia use the main floors of the house?" I'd asked, needing confirmation that he'd actually made such an insulting proposal. "It would just be more efficient," Patricia had added, apparently believing that practical arguments would make their suggestion acceptable. "The basement has everything you need: a bedroom, bathroom, kitchenette, and sitting area. And you'd still have access to the rest of the house, but you'd have your own private space where you could relax without feeling like you need to participate in all our family activities." The revelation that they'd been viewing my presence in the main living areas as an inconvenience rather than a privilege had been the final piece of evidence about their true attitude toward my generosity and their complete failure to understand the relationship between property ownership and household hierarchy. But what had made their suggestion even more insulting had been their assumption that I would simply agree to accept subordinate status in my own home while they enjoyed the luxury lifestyle that my success had made possible. "We think this arrangement would work better for everyone," David had continued, apparently oblivious to the enormity of what he was suggesting. "You'd have your own space, and we'd have more room for the kids' activities and our entertaining. It's really a win-win situation that would optimize the estate's functionality." The casual dismissal of my status as property owner and family matriarch in favor of optimizing functionality had been the final demonstration of how completely they'd misunderstood both my capabilities and my willingness to accept disrespectful treatment from people who owed their comfortable lifestyle to my generosity. That evening, sitting alone in my home office after David and Patricia had left to give me time to think about their suggestion, I'd made the decision that would change everything forever and would demonstrate exactly what happened when people underestimated someone with my resources, determination, and legal authority to make decisions that could reshape their entire future in ways they'd never anticipated. Rather than accepting their insulting suggestion or attempting to negotiate a compromise that would preserve our relationship while maintaining my dignity, I would implement the most decisive response possible, immediately listing the entire estate for sale and terminating their occupancy in a way that would teach them the most comprehensive lesson they'd ever receive about respecting property owners and understanding the consequences of treating generosity as weakness. The decision to list the property had been motivated by several factors, but primarily by my recognition that David and Patricia's attitude toward my value and their expectations for our relationship had become fundamentally incompatible with any living arrangement that would preserve my dignity and autonomy. More importantly, the decision would serve as a comprehensive demonstration of the difference between property ownership and occupancy, teaching them that comfortable living arrangements were privileges that could be revoked when recipients failed to maintain appropriate respect and gratitude for the opportunities they'd been provided. The next morning, I'd contacted Rebecca Morrison, Seattle's most prestigious luxury real estate agent and a professional colleague who'd handled several of my previous property transactions. Rebecca had been familiar with the estate's value and market potential, and had immediately understood both the financial opportunity and the family dynamics that had motivated my decision. "Margaret, this property will be one of the most desirable luxury listings in the Seattle market," Rebecca had said during our initial consultation. "The waterfront location, architectural quality, and prestigious neighborhood will attract buyers who are willing to pay premium prices for this level of luxury and exclusivity. The listing process had been remarkably efficient, with professional photography scheduled for the following week and marketing materials prepared that would position the estate as an exceptional opportunity for buyers seeking the finest luxury, residential properties in the Pacific Northwest. But more importantly, the listing would serve notice to David and Patricia that their comfortable lifestyle was ending, and that their assumption about inheriting the property had been a fundamental miscalculation of both my intentions and my willingness to accept disrespectful treatment. The asking price had been set at $3.2 million, reflecting both the property's inherent value and the current market conditions that had made luxury waterfront properties increasingly desirable for wealthy buyers seeking privacy, prestige, and investment appreciation potential. The revelation of the property listing had occurred 3 days later, when Rebecca's marketing materials had appeared in luxury real estate publications and online platforms that had immediately attracted attention from both potential buyers and local real estate professionals who recognized the significance of such a prestigious property being offered for sale. David and Patricia had first learned about the listing when Patricia's colleague at the marketing agency had mentioned seeing the estate featured in Seattle Magazine's luxury real estate section, complete with professional photographs and detailed descriptions of the property's amenities and location advantages. "Margaret, we saw that the estate is listed for sale," David had said when he'd called that evening, his voice carrying a combination of shock and disbelief. "We don't understand what's happening. Is this some kind of mistake or misunderstanding?" My response had been direct and unambiguous, designed to ensure they understood both the finality of my decision and the connection between their disrespectful treatment and the consequences they were now experiencing. "David, there's no misunderstanding," I'd said calmly. "After your suggestion that I move to the basement of my own property, I realized that our living arrangement had become untenable. I've decided to sell the estate and relocate to accommodations that will better serve my needs and expectations." The silence that had followed had lasted nearly 30 seconds, as David had apparently struggled to process the magnitude of what he was hearing and the implications for his family's immediate and long-term future. "Mom, we didn't mean to offend you," David had finally said, his voice now carrying genuine panic as he'd begun to understand the scope of the consequences his suggestion had triggered. The basement suggestion was just a practical idea for reorganizing space. We never intended to disrespect you or make you feel unwelcome in your own home. But Patricia's reaction had been even more revealing, reflecting her immediate understanding of both the financial implications and the social embarrassment that would result from their forced relocation from one of Seattle's most prestigious residential addresses. "Margaret, please don't make any hasty decisions," Patricia had said when she'd taken the phone from David. "We're grateful for everything you've done for our family, and we want to work together to find a solution that makes everyone comfortable. The basement suggestion was just a misunderstanding that we can easily resolve." The assumption that my decision was a hasty reaction that could be resolved through negotiation had demonstrated their continued failure to understand the fundamental change that had occurred in our relationship and my determination to prioritize my own dignity and autonomy over family harmony. The market response to the estate listing had been extraordinary, with 12 serious inquiries within the first week and 3 formal offers within 10 days. The property's combination of waterfront location, architectural quality, and prestigious neighborhood had attracted buyers who were willing to compete aggressively for the opportunity to acquire such an exceptional property. The highest offer had come from a technology executive who'd recently sold his company for $150 million and was seeking a primary residence that would reflect his success while providing luxury amenities and investment appreciation potential. His offer of $3.4 million had exceeded the listing price and had included terms that would allow for rapid closing and immediate occupancy. "Margaret, we have an exceptional offer that I recommend you accept," Rebecca had reported during our review of the competing proposals. "This buyer has excellent financing no contingencies, and can close within 30 days. This represents both maximum financial return and minimum transaction complexity. The decision to accept the offer had been immediate, reflecting my determination to complete the sale as quickly as possible, while maximizing the financial return and minimizing any opportunities for David and Patricia to interfere with the transaction or attempt to negotiate alternative arrangements. The 30-day closing timeline had provided David and Patricia with minimal time to make alternative housing arrangements, ensuring they would experience the full impact of the consequences their disrespectful treatment had generated, while learning that some decisions have permanent implications that cannot be reversed through apologies or negotiations. The revelation that the estate sale would close within 30 days had forced David and Patricia to confront the immediate reality of finding alternative housing in Seattle's competitive and expensive real estate market. Their previous rental in Redmond was no longer available, and comparable properties in desirable neighborhoods were both scarce and significantly more expensive than they'd been paying in shared living expenses. The search process had been particularly challenging because they'd become accustomed to luxury amenities and prestigious location that were available only in properties far beyond their financial capacity to purchase or rent independently. The waterfront access, private grounds, and sophisticated architectural features they'd been enjoying were available only in properties that required either substantial wealth or rental payments that would consume most of their combined income. "Mom, we're having trouble finding anything comparable to the estate within our budget," David had reported during one of several phone calls where he'd attempted to discuss their housing crisis. "The rental market has gotten much more expensive, and the properties we can afford are either too small for our family or located in areas that would require the kids to change schools." The housing search had also revealed the extent to which their lifestyle and social connections had been dependent on the prestigious address and luxury amenities I'd been providing. The children's school friends, Patricia's professional networking, and David's social relationships had all been enhanced by their association with one of Medina's most desirable properties. Patricia had been even more direct in expressing the social and professional implications of their forced relocation, reflecting her understanding of how address and lifestyle affected both personal relationships and career advancement opportunities. "Margaret, losing access to the estate means losing connections and opportunities that have been important for both our careers and the children's social development," Patricia had said during one particularly emotional conversation. "We understand that we made a mistake with our suggestion, and we're hoping you'll reconsider the sale and give us another chance to make the living arrangement work." But their appeals for reconsideration had been based on the mistaken assumption that my decision was an emotional reaction that could be reversed through sufficient expressions of regret and promises of improved behavior, rather than a strategic business decision designed to establish permanent consequences for disrespectful treatment. During the final weeks before the estate sale closing, I'd been making my own relocation arrangements, purchasing a luxury penthouse condominium in downtown Seattle's most prestigious residential tower. The new property provided spectacular city and water views, sophisticated amenities, and the kind of luxury living environment that would support both my continued business activities and my desire for social connections with other successful professionals. The penthouse purchase had been completed through cash transaction that had demonstrated both my financial independence and my ability to upgrade my living situation, while David and Patricia had been struggling to find acceptable alternative housing within their reduced budget constraints. "Margaret has acquired one of the most desirable residential properties in downtown Seattle," the real estate agent had noted in a follow-up conversation. "The penthouse provides both luxury living and excellent investment appreciation potential, while positioning her perfectly for continued business and social activities." The new living arrangement had also provided symbolic demonstration of the difference between property ownership and occupancy, with my upgraded luxury accommodations contrasting sharply with David and Patricia's downgraded housing situation, and their loss of access to the lifestyle advantages my generosity had provided. The children's reaction to the forced relocation had been particularly difficult for David and Patricia, as Sarah and Michael had formed strong attachments to the waterfront property and had been devastated by the necessity of leaving their friends and familiar environment. "Grandma Margaret, why can't we live at the beautiful house anymore?" Sarah had asked during one of our final conversations before the estate sale closing. "I loved living by the water and having my own room with the big windows." The impact on the grandchildren had been the one aspect of the situation that had caused me genuine sadness, but had also served as an important lesson about the consequences of family decisions and the importance of treating generosity with appropriate respect and gratitude. The news of the estate sale and family relocation had generated significant attention within Seattle's real estate and business communities, with professional colleagues and social acquaintances expressing both surprise at the family conflict and admiration for my decisive response to disrespectful treatment. "Margaret Thornfield has demonstrated that successful business people don't tolerate disrespect from anyone, including family members," one colleague had commented during a networking event. Her response sends a clear message about the importance of maintaining dignity and autonomy, regardless of family relationships. The industry response had been particularly supportive, with other successful women expressing appreciation for my willingness to prioritize personal dignity over family harmony when the two had become incompatible. Margaret's response to her family's disrespectful treatment has been inspiring for those of us who've built substantial wealth and sometimes face similar challenges with relatives who take our generosity for granted. Rebecca Chen, a successful tech entrepreneur, had said during a women's business networking event. "She's demonstrated that maintaining self-respect is more important than preserving relationships that have become exploitative." The Seattle Business Journal had featured my story as part of their series on family business conflicts, noting that my decisive response had established important precedents for how successful business owners should handle situations where family members attempt to take advantage of their generosity or undermine their autonomy. Margaret Thornfield's handling of her family situation demonstrates the importance of maintaining clear boundaries and consequences when personal relationships conflict with professional dignity, the article had noted. Her willingness to prioritize self-respect over family convenience sends an important message about the responsibilities that come with accepting generosity from successful relatives. The estate sale had generated proceeds of $3.4 million, which I'd immediately reinvested in a diversified portfolio of luxury properties and commercial real estate investments that had enhanced both my monthly income and my long-term wealth-building potential. The transaction had also eliminated the substantial ongoing expenses associated with maintaining the large estate, including property taxes, utilities, landscaping, and general maintenance that had been costing over $8,000 per month. The financial restructuring had improved my cash flow by approximately $12,000 per month while maintaining my luxury lifestyle and actually enhancing my social connections through the downtown penthouse location that had provided better access to business, networking, and cultural activities. More importantly, the estate sale had preserved my wealth for my own enjoyment and future charitable giving, rather than allowing it to be gradually transferred to family members who demonstrated their lack of appreciation and respect for my generosity. Margaret's financial repositioning has enhanced both her immediate lifestyle and her long-term wealth preservation, my financial advisor had noted during our quarterly review. The property sale and reinvestment strategy has improved her cash flow while maintaining excellent appreciation potential and providing much better liquidity for future opportunities. The investment returns from the sale proceeds had been exceptional, generating monthly income that had exceeded my living expenses while building additional wealth that would support decades of luxury living and philanthropic giving that reflected my values and priorities. The aftermath of the estate sale had continued to affect David and Patricia's lifestyle and financial situation in ways that had provided ongoing reminders of the consequences their disrespectful treatment had generated. Their rental housing costs had increased by over $4,000 per month compared to their previous shared living expenses, while their housing quality had decreased substantially in terms of space, amenities, and neighborhood prestige. The children's adjustment to their new living situation had been particularly difficult, requiring school changes, the loss of waterfront recreational opportunities, and separation from friends and activities that had been central to their social development. Sarah had been especially affected by the loss of her sailing lessons and private waterfront access, while Michael had missed the extensive grounds and photography opportunities the estate had provided. David's career advancement at Microsoft had also been affected by the housing change, as his reduced savings and increased living expenses had limited his ability to invest in professional development opportunities and had created financial stress that had affected his job performance and advancement potential. The housing situation has been much more challenging than we anticipated, David had reported during one of our occasional phone conversations. The increased expenses and reduced living quality have affected every aspect of our family life, and we're struggling to maintain the lifestyle and opportunities the kids were accustomed to. Patricia's marketing career had experienced similar impacts, with her reduced social connections and increased financial stress affecting both her professional networking and her ability to participate in industry events and professional development, activities that were essential for career advancement in Seattle's competitive marketing environment. But perhaps most significantly, their relationship with the extended family and social community had been affected by the dramatic change in their living situation and the obvious family conflict that had resulted in my decision to sell the estate rather than continue sharing it with them. Over the months following the estate sale, David and Patricia had made numerous attempts to reconcile our relationship and potentially restore some version of our previous family collaboration. But their efforts had been based on the mistaken assumption that sufficient apologies and promises of improved behavior could reverse the fundamental change that had occurred in my willingness to accept disrespectful treatment. "Mom, we've learned our lesson about taking your generosity for granted," David had said during one particularly emotional conversation 6 months after the sale. "We understand now that our suggestion was insulting and inappropriate, and we're hoping we can rebuild our relationship and maybe find ways to collaborate again on investments and family activities." My response had been consistent and clear. While I remained willing to maintain appropriate family relationships, the days of substantial financial support and collaborative business activities had ended permanently due to their demonstrated inability to maintain respectful and appreciative attitudes toward my contributions. "David, I'm happy to continue our relationship as long as it's based on mutual respect and appropriate boundaries," I'd explained. "But the collaborative investments and substantial financial support are no longer appropriate given what's happened. You and Patricia need to build your own success without depending on my resources or expertise." Patricia had been even more persistent in her attempts to restore our business collaboration, apparently believing that sufficient expressions of regret and acknowledgement of my expertise could convince me to resume providing investment guidance and financial support. "Margaret, we realize now how valuable your expertise has been to our financial success," Patricia had said during one of several conversations where she'd attempted to negotiate some form of renewed collaboration. "We're hoping you'll consider giving us another chance to benefit from your knowledge and experience, with better appreciation for everything you've taught us." But their appeals had consistently failed to address the fundamental issue. Their demonstrated belief that my age and generosity made me vulnerable to manipulation and disrespectful treatment, and their apparent assumption that consequences could be negotiated away through sufficient expressions of remorse. The establishment of clear boundaries and consequences had ultimately resulted in a much healthier family dynamic, with our interactions now based on mutual respect rather than financial dependency and assumed inheritance expectations. Holiday gatherings and family celebrations had continued, but with David and Patricia now understanding that their comfortable lifestyle and financial security were their own responsibility rather than benefits they could expect from my continued generosity. The grandchildren had adapted to the new family situation more successfully than their parents, maintaining loving relationships with me while learning important lessons about respect, gratitude, and the relationship between actions and consequences that would serve them well throughout their lives. "Grandma Margaret, I understand why you sold the house," Sarah had said during one of our regular lunch meetings at my downtown penthouse. "Daddy and Mommy weren't being respectful of your kindness, and grown-ups need to learn from their mistakes, just like kids do." Michael had demonstrated similar understanding, expressing appreciation for the continued relationship while acknowledging that his parents had made poor decisions that had affected the entire family's living situation. The new family dynamic had also provided opportunities for me to model appropriate responses to disrespectful treatment, demonstrating to both my grandchildren and the broader community that successful people maintain their dignity regardless of family pressures or emotional manipulation. The ultimate vindication of my response had come through the continued success of my business activities and the enhanced respect I'd received from both professional colleagues and social acquaintances who'd witnessed my handling of the family situation. Rather than being viewed as an elderly woman who'd overreacted to a family disagreement, I'd been recognized as a successful business owner who'd appropriately defended her autonomy and dignity against disrespectful treatment. Margaret Thornfield has demonstrated that maintaining self-respect is essential for continued success at any age, one business colleague had noted during a networking event. Her willingness to prioritize dignity over family convenience has enhanced rather than diminished her reputation within the business community. The Seattle Chamber of Commerce had invited me to speak at their annual Women's Leadership Conference about the importance of maintaining professional boundaries and personal autonomy throughout all stages of career development, recognizing my situation as an example of how successful women could handle family conflicts that threatened their independence. Margaret's experience demonstrates that generosity and family loyalty don't require accepting disrespectful treatment, I'd told the audience during my presentation. Successful people have a responsibility to maintain standards and consequences that preserve their dignity while teaching others about the importance of gratitude and appropriate behavior. The speaking engagement had led to additional opportunities for community leadership and professional recognition, with several organizations requesting my participation in programs focused on family business management, wealth preservation, and intergenerational relationship challenges. The story of my response to David and Patricia's disrespectful treatment had resonated throughout Seattle's business and social communities, inspiring other successful individuals to examine their own family relationships and establish clearer boundaries around financial support and living arrangements that had been taken for granted by relatives. Several other successful women had contacted me to share similar experiences and seek advice about handling family situations where generosity had been met with entitlement rather than gratitude, creating an informal network of mutual support and strategic thinking about family relationship management. Margaret's willingness to take decisive action has inspired me to address similar issues in my own family. One successful entrepreneur had written in a follow-up message after my Chamber of Commerce presentation, "Her example has given me the confidence to establish boundaries that preserve my autonomy while maintaining appropriate family relationships." The broader impact had extended beyond individual families to influence community discussions about aging, independence, and the responsibilities that come with accepting generosity from successful relatives. Local media had featured stories about the importance of maintaining respect for older adults who'd achieved substantial success, and the consequences that should follow when family members attempt to exploit their generosity. Standing in my downtown penthouse 2 years after the estate sale, reviewing the quarterly reports that showed continued growth in my investment portfolio and the community recognition that had resulted from my decisive response to family disrespect, I understood that the decision to sell the estate had been one of the most important choices of my entire life. The financial results had been exceptional, with the proceeds from the sale generating returns that had exceeded the estate's carrying costs, while providing liquidity and flexibility that had enhanced both my immediate lifestyle and my long-term financial security. The penthouse location had provided better access to business opportunities, cultural activities, and social connections that had enriched my retirement years while maintaining my professional engagement. But more importantly, the decision had established principles and boundaries that had protected my dignity while teaching essential lessons about respect, gratitude, and the consequences of taking generosity for granted. The example had influenced not just my own family, but the broader community's understanding of how successful individuals should handle situations where family relationships conflict with personal autonomy and professional dignity. The grandchildren had grown up understanding that love and family connection didn't require accepting disrespectful treatment, and that maintaining self-respect was essential for long-term happiness and successful relationships. These lessons would serve them well throughout their lives as they built their own careers and family relationships. David and Patricia had eventually acknowledged that their suggestion had been inappropriate and had expressed genuine appreciation for the business lessons and life skills they'd learned through experiencing the consequences of their disrespectful treatment. While our relationship had never returned to its previous level of financial collaboration, it had evolved into a more honest and respectful dynamic that served everyone's long-term interests. The ultimate vindication had come not through David and Patricia's eventual apologies or their acknowledgement of their mistakes, but through the demonstrated success of my independent living situation and the enhanced respect I'd received from the broader community for my handling of the situation. The penthouse had been featured in Seattle Magazine as an example of how successful professionals could design retirement living that maintained both luxury and independence, while providing opportunities for continued business engagement and community contribution. The feature had generated additional business opportunities and social connections that had made my 70s more professionally and personally satisfying than many people experienced in their earlier decades. Margaret Thornfield has created a retirement lifestyle that demonstrates how wealth, wisdom, and independence can combine to produce extraordinary results, the magazine article had noted. Her response to family challenges and her continued business success provide inspiration for others who refuse to accept age-related assumptions about declining capability or social relevance. The professional recognition had been equally satisfying, with invitations to serve on nonprofit boards, participate in business mentoring programs, and contribute to community development projects that utilized my expertise while providing purposeful engagement that enhanced both my personal satisfaction and my community impact. But perhaps most importantly, the entire experience had demonstrated that some decisions are too important to be compromised by family pressure or emotional manipulation, and that maintaining dignity and self-respect often requires courage to prioritize long-term principles over short-term relationship harmony. If someone in your life is trying to treat your generosity as an entitlement while suggesting that your age or family relationship gives them the right to make decisions about your living situation or lifestyle choices, remember my story. Remember that property ownership comes with legal rights that family relationships cannot override, and that respect and gratitude are not optional components of healthy family dynamics. Remember that people who suggest you move to the basement of your own property might discover they've challenged someone with the financial resources and legal authority to sell their comfortable lifestyle out from under them with a single phone call to the right real estate professionals. What's your story? Have you ever had to teach family members about the difference between generosity and weakness? Share it in the comments below, and remember to like and subscribe for more stories about turning family disrespect into life-changing lessons about dignity, autonomy, and the power of decisive action. Because sometimes the best response to people who treat your kindness as weakness is showing them exactly what happens when business expertise meets unlimited determination and the legal authority to change everything, with decisions they never saw coming. David and Patricia thought they could suggest I move to the basement while they enjoyed the luxury lifestyle my success had provided. What they actually did was inspire the most decisive business decision of my retirement years, while learning that some people respond to disrespect with consequences that reshape entire family dynamics permanently. Sometimes the people who think Your best days are behind you are about to discover you're actually someone with the power to make decisions that will redefine their understanding of what's possible when experience meets determination and unlimited financial authority. That's a lesson worth $3.4 million in property sale proceeds. And every dollar was worth it to prove that respect and appreciation aren't negotiable at any age, and that some suggestions are so insulting, they deserve responses that change everything forever. Justice served, independence secured, dignity preserved, boundaries established, legacy protected. The view from 72 is spectacular when you're surrounded by people who respect your achievements rather than trying to exploit them. David and Patricia learned that suggesting someone move to the basement was the beginning of the most expensive lesson in gratitude they'd ever receive, and the most dramatic demonstration of what happens when you underestimate someone with the power to sell your future out from under you. Respect your elders, especially when they have the legal authority to change your life with a single signature. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.